and this is my Smart American Accent training. Welcome to our Saturday live question and answer class. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat at any time. At the start of class, we're going to be talking about a phrase, how to speak this phrase fluently, what types of linking and reductions we do in the phrase, and I'll give you some tips for general fluency in your speech. You can ask questions about that topic or American English pronunciation, American accent, whatever is going to help you be more confident in speaking English. If you're joining this later on as a replay, please feel free to put your questions in the chat and or in the comments, and I'll come back to those. And as I said, if you're here live, you can leave your chat questions at any time. So welcome everyone. It's nice to see you back here again on Saturday. So we're going to look at the phrase, try to see it from my point of view. This is something where we're going to see a number of different types of linking and reductions that can happen, and a few different ways you can say this phrase fluently and naturally. Of course, when we're speaking English, we don't actually say each word the same as we would if we said them by themselves. If I were to say each of these words, try to see it from my point of view, I'm pronouncing all those words correctly, but you can hear that that doesn't sound natural, it doesn't flow, it doesn't connect. So how do we say this phrase naturally in everyday speech? In this phrase, the stress is going to fall on the word my. Try to see it from my point of view, because in this case, the meaning needs extra stress on my. It doesn't follow the standard rule of stressing the last content word view, because the my is important here. The speaker is asking to have their perspective seen, and they need stress on the word my, which means everything but the word my may have a reduction or may be linked. So when I say try to see it, I will typically, because I'm linking from a vowel to the T, and the word to is not very important, I'm going to change this into a flap. So rather than try to see, it'll sound more like try to see, try to. So the I goes right into the I diphthong goes right into the flap sound, and then my oo gets changed to a schwa, to an sound. So it's going to sound more like try to see, try to see. You can also say try to see. So for some people, it's easier to use a true T there, try to see. That's also correct. Naturally, though, for many people, many speakers, when they're going from a vowel sound or a voiced continuant like an NG or an N or an sound, they're going to change into a flap as they link that to. So the word to connects the words try and see. It's unstressed and unimportant, and it functions kind of all as though we're all one word, try to see, like a 3-syllable word. Then I also move from see to it seamlessly. So if I say those words separately, see, it, I have kind of a glottal onset to it. The vowel I starts suddenly. But when I say see it, if I link the two, I naturally moving from that high front E to the high front I, see ya. This little ya sound tends to connect those two. So I recently had several videos talking about vowel to vowel linking within words and between words. Anytime I'm moving from a high front vowel to another vowel, I'm going to potentially have that ya sound happening. See it. Try to see it. Then how I say the T of it, because the next sound is a consonant, try to see it from, I'm not going to say see it from, that T is not going to be released. So this will be an unreleased T sound because it's followed by the F sound of from. So I can just go up to make the T, see it, and then I release into the consonant F, see it from my. So the word from doesn't really change too much here, but when I do say from by itself, if I've said, for example, who's it from, I'm going to use a long stress schwa. Who's it from? My will be a clear vowel. But because the word from is reduced here, I'll probably use a short, unstressed schwa. Still the same sound but now rather than who's it from, It's going to sound more like see it from my. So my sound here is very short. It is a schwa in any case, but when I'm linking it and using from, often I'm going to have that kind of reduced schwa sound from my point of view. You may have noticed as I was modeling that I don't really have to say two M's. I don't have to say from my with the break between the M's, from my point of view. I do have a nice long clear and a clear I on the word my because it's stressed. And then point of view is also going to be a little bit quicker. It's going to be unstressed and linked together. A couple different ways I can do that. One, when I naturally will say point of view. So I may just drop that T entirely and it sounds like point of, linked together, or point of view. You can say the T. Typically in words that end with NT, we either say a true T, like can't, don't, or when we're linking, we can drop that T, point of. So an NT in the middle of a word, like in interview, same thing. I either say the T with a burst of air, interview, or I drop the T and it sounds more like interview. So because this is all linked together and point of view kind of functions like an NT in the middle, then that's where that dropping of the T comes from. Point of, what's your point of view? Point of. So that's one natural way we do it, no T sound. Or because it is at the end of a word and it's separate words, I can do point of view, where I'm going to have a little T linking point of view. Again, the word of has the and the v sound, and I have another v here, so I don't need point of view. I don't need to stop that v sound. I can just link them together. Point of view. So putting it all together, try to see it from my point of view. Try to see it from my point of view. Try to see it from my point of view. So a little extra stress on my. I might raise it up even higher in pitch if I really want to make it clear that that's where I'm stressing. Let's practice with this and then we'll turn to your questions. I want to show you another practice technique when you're trying to implement these. Of course, you can go through one by one, slowly practice those linking and reductions, try to master all of those things happening, but it also can be very helpful to build from the stressed word. So we'll do some backwards chaining. We'll start at the end and then we'll add one word at a time. You can follow after me. That sounds like view, a view, point of view, my point of view, from my point of view, see it from my point of view, to see it from my point of view, try to see it from my point of view. You can also say the whole thing fluently linked together, but take it more slowly. You notice that I don't really slow down my speech when I'm teaching, but I do often recommend or suggest that if I'm speaking too quickly for you to follow those models, that you can go to the settings on your YouTube video and turn the speed down to 0.75 or even 0.5. You'll still hear the natural speech, but you can hear those linkings and that connection more easily at the slower speed. Not because you're going to necessarily speak at that slower speed eventually, but to hear it and to practice, you can slow it down and then you can speed back up. You can also just slow down even without slowing down the video. I'll model that for you now. So try to see it from my point of view. Try to see it from my point of view. And then speed back up. Try to see it from my point of view. So we do this even in slower speech. We don't want our speech to be slow because we're stopping and chopping between words. So if it's too much to do the whole sentence, just build a little part at a time. Try to see it. Try to see it. To see it from my point of view, my point of view. You can do any of those different connections and work on them till they feel natural to you. Then build and put the whole thing together. And it's worth spending time to do that because these same kinds of connections happen in lots and lots of sentences. So it's not that you're necessarily wanting to memorize and practice one particular phrase, but when you get more comfortable with see it, try to, from, point of, those types of linkings and connections, they'll come more naturally to you for similar sounds or these same words in other contexts. So that's what I recommend for practice for today. You can get lots more help for linking and reductions in our playlist for that, as well as in our online course, our Real Talk course for advanced fluent English. That's on our website, speechmodification.com. And in there, I walk you through lots of different linking and reductions, and I show you how to use TV and movies to practice and to develop that natural sounding real talk that fluent native speakers have. Okay, nice to see so many of you here. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat at any time. We can talk about that topic or another topic. I'll turn to your questions now. So we have a question about when we're reading, how we say IE and EG. So you can either say the just the initials, like you said, which would sound like I. I usually write I like IGH as in right or night. So IE. We stress the second one, so we're shorter on the IE. Or EG, same thing, we stress the second one, so we're going to have the J sound, EG. I can also, for this one, say, for example. And for this one, even though it's Latin, we can say in other words, if you don't want to say the initials. So, for example, this, or in other words, this. Or you can say IE and EG. Yeah, great question. Thank you so much. I'm sure that will be helpful for other people as well when they're trying to read out loud. Okay, we have questions about Luigi Mangione. So the questions probably come from that this is an Italian-American name, and so there's going to be more Italian pronunciation of it or more American. So for Luigi, we're stressing on the E syllable, so it sounds like Louis, and we do vowel to vowel linking there. Louis, the letter G says the J sound here, so stressing on E, Luigi, and then Mangione is going to be more like, in Italian, it would be Mangione. So it would be a N sound and a J sound. Probably in American English, it's either going to be mon or maybe even man, maybe the A vowel, man, G, O. And then here we can either anticipate that Americans will say ni, Mangione, or Mangione. So it kind of depends on that particular family and how connected they are to the Italian pronunciation of it. So Mangione would be more American, Mangione would be more Italian. I'm not going to comment on, I haven't heard him saying his own name or his family saying their own name. Usually I try to go right to the source when it comes to names because they are pretty individualized. But when you're talking about it, you could use either the Italian or the American pronunciation and be well understood for saying his name. Thank you for that question. Okay, we have a question about majority and minority. Thank you so much for being a channel member. It's nice to see you here. So for majority, we have the stress on the jor syllable, and the letter J says the J sound. Because it's stressed there, that means our first syllable, letter A, is going to be the unstressed schwa. It's going to sound just like So we'll have m. And then we have the stress, and we have the J sound. Letters OR do say or in that stressed syllable, so it sounds like major. And then we have our ity ending, which is our I vowel, our flap T, and our tense E. So I'll write the flap as a D, so majority. For that word, you can practice it by starting on the jor, jority, majority. And then similar pattern for minority, except that we have secondary stress on the I. So rather than minority, we do say minority. So we'll see a secondary stress there. The I does say the I sound. And then we still have a stressed second syllable with the or. And our same itty with the flap ending. So that sounds like my, nor, itty. So the majority of people, a minority of people. Yeah, there may be some context in which we can reduce this to like minority with a I sound instead of an I. But often we'll have that secondary stress, minority. The minority, the majority. Versus, of course, major has the first syllable stress, so our A in major is going to be a true A sound. And then our OR is going to be an sound. So in major, because the syllable stress changes, we have major. So no or and an A here versus majority and major. I do believe I may have a video for those words. If you need more in-depth explanation than that, just let me know in a comment and I'll come back and send you the links for the videos for majority and minority. Thank you so much for being a channel member and for that great question. Okay, we have a question about the word macabre with 2 syllables or 3, and I think it is actually more common to do macabre with just the 2 syllables. So my video only talks about the 3-syllable version. So you can think about this just being dropped. So then it sounds like macabre. It's very macabre. In French, macabre, we're going to have a little bit of the French there. So that influenced how I taught it for English. But I think you're more, it's more correct or more common to have just the 2-syllable macabre. So thank you for that follow-up. Okay, we have a question about drawer. So I do have a video for that I can send you to. Even though we have in draw, we have the ah vowel, like saw, draw, she saw how I draw. In drawer, it no longer matches that. We're not doing drawer. Rather, like a dresser drawer is the vowel changes, and we have more of an or sound here. So it's like the or vowel plus the dra, so drawer. Often what I'll teach is build that from the word roar and then add your D. Roar, drawer. If that's hard for you, just start with the or, then add the R, or, roar, drawer. So you'll see that the IPA for that is the or sound, or you may see it written this way, or. Oftentimes people will, dictionaries will write the or sound with the or diphthong, they'll write it that way. So that's a little misleading because it looks like it would be drawer, but we don't say drawer, we say drawer. Okay, very good. Thank you for that question. We have a question about mirror and horror. So similar to drawer, except for 2 syllables. So for mirror, and also no or sound, we have the ear diphthong and then an sound. So first syllable stress, it sounds like mirror, mirror. Or you can think about ear, same as the word ear. Ear, mirror, mirror. Also the same as this word mirror. It's a mirror, mirror. So the first syllable is the same as this. So mirror for this word. And then for horror, same concept. We have the or in the first syllable. So letters O-R do say or in this syllable, but in this syllable they say the ER sound because it's unstressed. So first syllable stress, or and then second syllable So you can think of it as horror, horror. Often the challenge in these words like mirror or horror is going from the R to the So being able to do the part of it is the challenge. So I would suggest building that from and then you just, to do you just have to start in the tight R, drop out briefly and come back in. Horror, horror. Words like horror and mirror are also not that easy for native speakers to say, and sometimes they kind of get reduced like horror, mirror, like they don't sound so much like two syllables. I do think it's key to try to put all those R's in to make them two syllables to be very clear, because otherwise it could sound, we want to make a distinction between mirror and mirror. They're not the same. Right? And we may want to make a distinction between whore and horror, same idea. You don't want to sound like you're saying a one-syllable word when you're trying to say the two-syllable word. Great question. Thank you so much. Okay, we have a question, about a comment follow-up on horror that I've heard it as horror. Yes, so in some places, words like orange or Florida or horror, they will use more of an R sound there, like orange or Florida. That's a New York accent, and maybe some other East Coast accents will use more of an R sound there. Generally, though, most of the US and definitely the West Coast, Midwest will use or. So unless you're in one of those areas and everyone around you is saying horror or Florida, if you want to blend in, you can use the R there, but for the most part, I would recommend going with or on those words rather than R. That's a good observation. You're correct. That is used some places in the U.S. Okay. We have a question about biryani. So this would probably be better answered by someone who is of Indian origin and uses it better, but I have worked on saying this because I like to eat biryani. So it is kind of like it's spelled. So we have the IR saying the ear sound. I'm going to write it with thank you so much for your contribution and for your super chat. That's really sweet. That's very awesome. Thank you. So anyway, for this IR, it's the ear sound. And then the Y says the Y sound, biryani. The letter A says the A. Biryani. So they kind of run those two together, biryani. I will come back and double check that, listen to some native speakers saying it to make sure that that's correct, but I'm pretty sure that it's corresponds to sound to letter correspondence. So this is an E sound. So letter I says E, letter Y says ya, letter A says ah. So it's fairly straightforward. It's just not always easy to combine those sounds correctly. Yes, thank you for that question. Okay. Let's see. So any other questions? Feel free to put your questions in the chat. I want to talk a little bit more about some more linking and reductions for you that we talked about at the beginning. So let's look at another short phrase on how to link it and reduce it. So let's maybe talk about the phrase, how's it going? So this is a phrase that we use to follow up after we say hi, or it's another way of saying, how are you? How's it going? What we want to look at here and focus on is that we stress on the go syllable, and the letter S in house says the Z sound. So it's going to sound kind of like how's it? That's all going to run together, and then our stress falls on the go, and then in the word going, we have a natural little w sound that connects between the O, the rounded vowel, and the unrounded ing. So I don't need to put extra there. I don't need going. I don't need to close too much, but just going. That w should happen naturally. And oftentimes people get taught for questions to rise up in their intonation. When we have a question word like who, what, when, where, how, or why, we don't want to rise up. So I don't want to do how's it going. You can hear how that doesn't sound well. I only do the rise up if I have a yes/no question, which is a question that can be answered with yes or no and doesn't have a question word at the beginning. So like if I were saying, for example, are you doing okay? Are you doing okay? I'm going to rise up on the stressed syllable and then all of the syllables after. Are you doing okay? Doing okay? But I don't want to do that at how's it going because it doesn't sound natural at all. You can hear how that in a question that isn't a yes/no question, I'm going to rise and fall. So how's it going? Going. I'm going to use a similar pattern to if I were making a statement. It's going well. I'll just drop off at the end. How's it going? It's going well. But I do want to have a little rise and fall. If I just have how's it going with a falling only, how's it going? It kind of sounds like a statement. It's not really sounding like a question. So for questions with question words, you want a little rise before your fall at the end. For statements, you can have rise, fall, or just fall. And for yes/no questions, you have rise. So that is about linking, but also about the rhythm patterns or the intonation patterns that we want to use in those kinds of phrases. Okay, we have a question about rubber versus robbery. So in rubber, we have the sound, stress schwa, first syllable stress. So it sounds like rubber. For robber, it's the same, except we have the vowel. So letter O says when it's stressed. And then for robbery, we just add the E sound. So we have robbery. So there was a robbery at the rubber factory. So the and contrast, I have a number of videos about that. For a lot of people, it's hard for them to hear the difference between schwa and With schwa, my tongue is more relaxed. It's resting at the bottom of my mouth, but my mouth's not very open. I can say like rough rubber. Not a robbery. My tongue is also down at the bottom, but it's more tense, and my mouth is further open for that sound. So that's the difference between those two. So similarly, having other words like nut and not, hut and hot, etc. to compare with. Also, if you're having trouble between two similar words, again, using another word that's not a minimal pair can be helpful. So there's not much rubber in the tires. So much and rubber, matching those two, and not and robber, matching that open sound can be helpful. Thank you for that question. Okay, we have a question about the word faux pas and whether we say any sound for the letter X. So this comes from French, and there's no sound for the X. So we stress on pas. It just sounds like faux. These three letters just say O in French. Faux. In French, it's going to be shorter O, faux, faux pas. In American English, we kind of glide out and you make a diphthong out of our O, so it's faux. And then pas. Faux pas. So a phrase that originally was French but is also now part of English. Okay, we have a question about words like girl and world. So I do have some videos for these when we have the RL together. Even though these are single syllable words, it's helpful to kind of break it down and think of it as almost being two syllables. So with world, first of all, think of as though it starts with the word were, has the vowel. And so you want to build from that were. And then as I move from the to the it's a dark L here. It's going to have a little bit of this sound like in pull or full. So think about it as having a little bit of an sound. So my tongue goes from it just drops a little out of that tight into the position. Then I finish lifting for the front of the tongue for the L and add my D. So world, old. Same thing with girl. Thinking of it as kind of, I like to think of this one as grr with my tight tongue. And then my sound before my L. Girl, girl. So I feel the back of my tongue dropping for the sound. The front of the tongue then lifts to finish for the L. Girl, girl. World. I do have a number of videos for each of those, both a short video explaining it and a longer video talking about words like world and girl that have RL. It is a tough combination for a lot of people, so just be patient. And if you're having a lot of trouble, work on your R separately and your L separately, and then come back to working on putting them together in words like that. Okay, we have a question about the word or TH sound that's followed by a T sound. For example, words as in by the time and to the table. So for by the time or to the table. So the word the in both of those cases, because the next word starts with a consonant, is going to sound like the with the schwa rather than the. I don't want by the time or to the table, but to the and by the time, to the table. And you can hear how when I say those, to the table, by the time, it's almost like no vowel at all. It's very short and reduced schwa, by the time, the table. So I do recommend practicing filling in the blank. If it's difficult for you to do the and t together, the time, just practice doing a lot of words that start with T, the tool, the time, the title, the type, etc. Trying to just move from your tongue out for the of the, and then sneaking it back to go to the aspirated T, the t. I do think one thing I do there is if I just say tool or time, I can put the very tip of my tongue behind my teeth and burst out the air, tool, time. If I have to say the time, I don't think I'm doing the time with two separate movements. I think I'm making my T a little further back on my tongue. I'm still bursting out the air. I'm still making it in the same spot. But instead of the tip of my tongue going behind my teeth, a little further back on my tongue goes behind my teeth. The time. I can't do it if I go slow. The time. So it may be that I have to cheat the T a little bit to go immediately after the sound, especially if I'm really reducing that vowel. That's a very good question that you brought up. I hadn't thought about that, but I do think as we link, it's almost like linking from a TH right to a T. Great, thank you for that question. Okay, we'll take a few more and then we'll need to wrap up for today. It's nice to see so many of you here, especially channel members. Thank you for being part of the channel and supporting us. I'm going to turn to another channel member question now. Someone who was on jury duty, thank you for your service. So for jury, this is a tough combination for some people. We have the j sound, and letters UR just say the sound in jury. And then letter Y says the E. So thinking about building this, I would build it from just the You can think about it like ER, IR, UR, all the same sound of just one tight, unmoving and then add your j, jur, and then finally E, jury. And you also may want to practice it in the whole phrase, because when you break down jury, it might be easier, but then when you go to jury duty, it's kind of a fast moving back to that oo and the D of duty, jury duty. I was on a jury, I had jury duty. Yeah, great question. And thanks so much for being a channel member. I do have a video for juror, which is even harder to say. So for juror, it's like the other word we were looking at, mirror and horror. I'm just going to have to be able to do that juror. Yeah, okay, definitely not easy. Not easy words. Okay, we have a question about mortar and motor and whether they're the same. So for mortar, we have an or here. For motor, we have an O. So they're not the same. The final syllable sounds the same. Both of those sound like But here, you're going to have the long, clear O, motor, with a flat, motor. And here you're going to have more of an or sound before your flat. Mortar, motor. So when I do mo, I'm just rounded and I can just go right to my flat, motor. More, I have to have that tight before my T or before my flat. Very good. Okay. So tips on the TH sound, just lots and lots of practice with common words that have TH. Practice making sure the air can flow. Your tongue needs to be between your teeth, sticking out, and the air needs to be able to flow. So there needs to be room. So it can't actually touch. For lots of people, what they're doing is they're closing too much and it'll sound more like a the. Even if their tongue is in the right place, they're clamping down and there's no air flowing. So for the th sound, one of my recommendations is practice other flowing sounds, like practice saying the s sound and holding it, the sound of S. That's where your tongue is back here behind your teeth. S. And then practice making that same holding the f sound with the air flowing over it. Same, you could practice with the f sound, where my tongue and teeth and lip come together, but the air still flows, or the v sound. All of these flowing sounds, when you get used to holding them and being able to force the air through that small restriction, it will help you. And then also practice doing the TH sound in the middle of words and the middle of phrases. If I can say either, other, or in the, of the, when the TH is in the middle, then I'm usually able to master it and put it in all contexts. If I'm always just practicing starting on TH, like think, it's going to be hard when I have to say I think. I really need then that I. So you can make up nonsense words like uthu, atha, ethi, etc. I also do have a full playlist for pronouncing TH, and I recommend checking that out. There's a lot of different videos there and tips, words that have TH, and more things that you can do to master that sound. And you can take our Sounds of English course from our website, speechmodification.com. It walks you through the TH sound and all of the sounds of English, but gives you lots of different tips and support for saying the sounds, words with the sounds, phrases, kind of building up your skills for those more difficult American English sounds. Okay, so thanks for that question. A lot of people do struggle with TH. It's a later developing sound in English, and it's one that's often not in your native language, so it doesn't always feel comfortable using that flowing air and tongue between the teeth position. Okay, very nice. One more, and then we'll wrap it up for today. So we have a question about the word twirl. So that's actually very similar to our world and girl words that we were looking at, just a different spelling. So in twirl, we have the same earl combination. So thinking of that as kind of the o, and then add your w. I think I'll spell it like were, because it's the same as in we were. And then we just have to add our t at the beginning. So try whirl, twirl, twirl. We were twirling. The squirrel and the girl twirled around the world. That's quite a tongue twister, right? Lots of whirl. So mastering that combination of going from the to the ul Earl, just like in the name, Earl. That's going to help you with all of those types of words that have that combination. Okay, a question about whether it's normal for your throat to hurt when practicing an accent. Probably not. That probably means that you're too tense in your throat, or you're causing a lot of tension here, or you're doing something with your airflow that's affecting your throat. I mean, our throat can hurt if we've been talking too much, if we're not using like good vocal technique. But I would say trying to just relax more as you're practicing, or take lots of breaks. It's hard to say what specifically you're doing without listening to you, but usually your throat should not hurt when you're practicing, unless you're just exhausted from so much talking. Also, just try to have lots of breath support. So rather than creating sounds by making tension here, try to have like good support in your breath, and let the air flow through your throat. Your throat should be staying relaxed. All of the manipulation of the sound in English happens in our mouth, with the exception of the sound of H. There's a little bit of throat constriction. Otherwise, the only thing that's happening here is some vibration. And when we have good breath support, that voice and it should flow naturally. What I will say, it is normal for people to experience that because they're trying to experiment with changing how they're using their voice. But if you have your throat hurts speaking in your native language and in English, then it has something to do with the mechanics of how you're speaking. If it's just in English, probably you're using too much tension. Try to stay more relaxed here, which is not really easy, but you can sort of try to notice what you're doing when you're speaking and practicing your accent versus when you're just speaking, and see if you can feel that you're maybe tensing here too much. Okay. Thank you so much. It's wonderful, wonderful group today. So many great questions. I'm sure they're going to help lots of other people who are watching the video and not just you. So thank you for coming, for bringing your questions, and for being just a great part of the channel. So much of what I create for videos comes from your comments, your questions, your suggestions, because the channel is really about helping you with what your challenges that you face when it comes to English, fluent speaking, and the American accent. Do check out our other resources here on the channel. You can always leave me comments on this video or any video with your questions, and I'll direct you to resources. And of course, we have lots of great resources for you on our website as well, speechmodification.com. We have some free online courses and some inexpensive online courses to walk you through all levels, from the most basic to the most advanced when it comes to pronunciation and American accent. I look forward to seeing you again next week with our next live class, and of course throughout the week with our new videos debuting. Thanks everyone so much for your support, for subscribing, liking, sharing the videos. It does really help the channel to grow, and I truly appreciate your support. I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com. Remember, if you want to sound like a native speaker, you can do it. speechmodification.com. Bye everyone. Hope to see you again soon.